Trump stormed our house with the mob he incited, and we defended our house. And he violated our Constitution, and we defended the Constitution. And they tried to trash our democracy, and we revived it, and we protected it. This was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment in the history of the United States. And we know that impeachment, for reasons that we could explore at some other time, often becomes partisan. But this was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment event in the history of the country. It was also the largest Senate vote for a presidential impeachment, 57 to 43. And of course, the vote to impeach was 232 to 197 in the House. So we have a clear and convincing majority of members of Congress that the president actually incited violent insurrection against the Union and against the Congress. Senator Mitch McConnell just went to the floor essentially to say that we made our case on the facts, that he believed that Donald Trump was practically and morally responsible for inciting the events of January 6th. He described it, as we did, as a disgraceful dereliction of duty, a desertion of his office. And he made a series of statements that we didn't even make, saying that this was not over yet by a long shot, essentially, and that there was the path of criminal prosecution for the former president, the disgraced and now twice impeached former president. So the bottom line is that we convinced a big majority in the Senate of our case. I'm very proud of the exceptional hard work of these managers who worked through the night, many nights over several weeks, to make this case to the Senate and to the Union. As to, I just want to say, one word about the whole thing about witnesses. We were able to get treated as live under oath testimony, the statement of our colleague, Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler. We were able to get a stipulation to that and get it into evidence today by asking for her as a witness. If you listen to Mitch McConnell and the Republicans who are now hurriedly explaining why they voted not to convict, all of them are hinging it on a legal argument, jurisdictional or some other legal argument that could never be overcome by any number of witnesses. We could have had 5,000 witnesses and Mitch McConnell would be making the same speech, because what he's asserting is that the Senate never has jurisdiction over a former president. And for reasons I don't need to belabor, because a big part of the trial was about this, we reject that completely. It's totally at odds with our history, the Blunt case, the Belknap case, the text of the Constitution, the original intent of the Constitution, the original understanding of the Constitution, the Senate's own precedents, and so on. But in any event, the point is that no number of witnesses demonstrating that Donald Trump continued to incite the insurrectionists even after the invasion of the Capitol would convince them. They wouldn't be convinced. They were hinging it on a matter of law, which we thought we had settled back on Tuesday, of course, when the Senate elected to exercise jurisdiction and to reject that jurisdictional constitutional argument. But it is what it is. Mitch McConnell clearly feels that Donald Trump remains a huge problem for the Republican Party, even if he has been disgraced in the eyes of the country. And that is not my jurisdiction, and I really don't have anything to say about that. I think they will have to deal with the political dynamics within their own party. So we did get Donald Trump at least to admit that he's a former president now, so that's good news. He's not asserting that somehow he's still president, and they're recognizing, at least in a de facto sense, the legitimacy of this presidential election, which of course President Biden won by more than 7 million votes and by a margin of 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. with that, I will close my remarks, and the questions are open for any of us, and I'm going to share the podium with my distinguished colleagues. Okay. Yes, Mona.
Speaking about witnesses, at the beginning of this proceeding, there was a procedural motion. 5 Republicans broke ranks. They voted on the Rand Paul motion. Then there were 6 on the constitutionality. Today there were 7 who broke ranks on conviction. So what's to say if you didn't push harder on witnesses, try to get someone who could provide shed more light into Donald Trump's thinking, that you couldn't have grown the number of Republican defectors?
All right. Somebody else want to take a shot at that? I thought I addressed that, but anybody else want to? Yes, please, Stacey.
Listen, we heard from the minority leader, Mitch McConnell, that we have proven the case. He said specifically, the House managers have proven the facts of the case. And before we started yesterday, we knew when we rested with overwhelming evidence as to the facts of this case. These all jurors were also witnesses to the crime. They knew specifically what was happening. And then there was, we found additional information about Herrera Butler, which we, on yesterday evening, we decided that we were going to go after. And we got it. We got that information to further amplify what we had already proven there in court. There is no other additional witnesses that were friendly to us that were not there on the screen. The body cameras of the Capitol police officers, how much more resonance would that have given to them than the actual seeing the day of the insurrection? Individuals that others of us would have liked to have called, like the president, who we invited, is in fact the defendant and does not have to testify. Other individuals who may have been there with the president were not friendly witnesses to us and would have required subpoenas and months of litigation. They are still litigating McGahn in impeachment 1 a year later. And so we believe that we have shown that this president is a disgrace to our country. Mitch McConnell himself said that. These senators have decided to hang their hat on jurisdictional grounds, which are not based in evidence, which are not based on the facts, and they will have to be judged for that. We have done our duty to the American people.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.